presents Inside MCAS Miramar.
We're always striving for that perfect pass.
From the pilots in the air.
You can even think of it as like a 3D puzzle.
To their guides in the control tower. And the crews on the ground. We invite you to come along as we go inside the home of the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing.
If you live here in San Diego, that is no doubt a familiar sight, an FA-18 circling MCAS Miramar. Hi, I'm Jim Patton. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to look into just what those pilots are up to. We're also going to delve into the future of fighter aviation with the F-35 Lightning. And I'm going to get in the cockpit with the Blue Angels for a thrilling ride, and we want you to come along. But first, let's get acquainted with this base.
More than 10,000 Marines, sailors, and civilians work aboard the air station.
As this Miramar orientation video points out, the base is truly a city within a city, with all the accoutrements you'd expect to find in most any American community. The land itself has a history dating back to the First World War, when it was used by the Army to train infantry. Since 1997, it's been home to the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, equipped with a variety of troop transport and fighter aircraft. Though ties to the foot soldier remain paramount.
We're Marines first. Pilot is a job title.
Marine Corps Air Station Miramar is part of one Marine Expeditionary Force based at Camp Pendleton. Every pilot that gets in the cockpit of an aircraft, every enlisted flight and ground crew member has been through basic infantry, a bond ever present.
Our ultimate goal is to make sure that the young men and women of the United States Armed Forces who are on the ground in places like Afghanistan and Iraq, places around the world where they may be fighting for not only our liberty but the liberty of other people, that those people are protected.
The primary weapon employed toward that goal since the mid-1980s has been the FA-18 Hornet. The F stands for fighter, as in air-to-air combat. The A for assault, as in its ability to deliver powerful ordnance against ground targets. Basically, a supersonic nightmare for an enemy that requires a highly skilled and coordinated effort to unleash.
All of our simulations are based on worst-case scenario. The threat is always as good as it can be, and that's what we train against.
Miramar's F-18 pilots are divided into 2 camps, the combat-ready Marine Attack Squadron 323, also known as the Death Rattlers. Commissioned during the Second World War, the squadron of Corsairs at that time struck with devastating effect against the Japanese, shooting down 124 enemy aircraft in the last 5 months of the war without a single loss. 12 Death Rattlers would become aces. That kind of legacy sets the bar high. Along with the Death Rattlers, Miramar is home to Marine Fighter Attack Training Squadron 101. That's them right there. And their job? To make sure the pilots trained here are the best fighters in the world.
We train newly graduated flight students out of flight school here for their initial introduction to the F-18 operations.
It is an intense year of training involving high-tech avionics and weaponry in a fighter bomber that costs upwards of $50 million, including specialized training aircraft like this one, with dual controls for a student pilot and instructor.
How many do you have like this?
We only have probably 10 to 15 at any one time, so this is a very limited asset. This asset is what drives the syllabus because it's such a high requirement for them.
And only the best, some 45 to 60 pilots each year, are brought through the program here. It is a privileged position.
Kind of the realization that I was sitting in a fighter attack aircraft, which was just kind of a catharsis for me. Actually hear the engine turn on, you smell the exhaust. You're working with an enlisted Marine to help you start the jet. You've got an instructor in your back seat who you're trying to do your best for.
Captain Jake Hempen recalling his first training flight in an FA-18.
I was just so taken aback by the rush and the speed and all the adrenaline, like you said.
That flight was about a year ago, the realization of a dream that began long before that.
I think like every little boy around 5, I wanted to be a fighter pilot.
But the captain says as time went on, the idea seemed ridiculous. When he graduated with a degree in history and economics, the former mascot at Wake Forest University might have seemed a very unlikely candidate for fighter pilot. But then, who is?
You definitely don't want somebody who's going to be a complete lunatic in the aircraft, obviously. These things fly very fast. We carry significantly powerful weapons.
Chief Executive Officer Major Mike Brennan says the personality profile given to pilot candidates is one of the most limiting factors for who gets in, as seemingly divergent qualities are sought.
You want who's going to be controlled but a risk taker, obviously willing to push themselves to the edge of something.
I immediately thought Maverick and Top Gun.
Don't leave him. Coach, Hollywood's okay. I want Viper.
And I was immediately straightened out.
We nip it in the butt right off the bat.
Lieutenant Matthew Coulter is a Navy flight instructor who helps train Marine pilots.
It's just a different era of flying, and they just don't tolerate that type of behavior anymore. We're professionals, and we try to teach these guys how to be professionals as well.
Ultimately, the F-18 demands its own discipline. Capable of nearly twice the speed of sound, it's rated for 7.5 G.
You put the stick in your lap as you dogfight, and it's going to be 7 of your bodies piled onto your body, so very exhausting.
This while handling a complex array of avionics and weapons.
Either like do pickled bombs, fire missiles.
While Miramar asked us not to show their cockpits specifically, they did let us know we could find such footage online, like this version of the F-18 being used in Canada.
We have like 21 buttons per screen. We can display pretty much whatever we want.
Bottom line, this is an aircraft that requires a pilot to be in top mental and physical shape.
A couple hundred sounds like a lot. It's really whatever practice I can get. I'd get 300 more if I could.
It is, as they say, the core of the syllabus, carrier landing practice. When we come back, the rush of touch and goes right from the edge of the runway. We'll also meet the men and women that put live ordnance on these jets for live fire drills and the measures in place to make sure the bombs only go boom when they're supposed to. All this, plus our flight with the Blue Angels still straight ahead. So keep yourself buckled in. We'll be right back.
Now, let's test your knowledge. In all, MCAS Miramar encompasses roughly how many acres? A, 8,000, B, 13,000,